Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. My name is Allie and welcome to the top comment where I read and react to insane internet chaos in the form of Reddit stories. So if you like this type of content, please don't forget to subscribe. It is totally free and it means a lot to me. All right, happy Sunday everybody. I hope everybody made it through the weekend. I did, sort of. What did you guys do this weekend? Let me know in the comments below. Is anyone here cool enough to go to Coachella? I definitely was not, but I think after hearing about all of the chaos that went on there in terms of huge parking lines, no camping spots, no bathrooms even. Did I hear that too? I'm pretty sure I even heard them say there were no bathrooms available. So kind of glad I didn't go, but let me know if you did. And if you did, let me know what you thought. Give me the tea. All right, we are going to jump right on into it today. Today's episode is kind of about the butterfly effect. And if you guys aren't familiar with that theory, it's the theory that something as small as a butterfly flapping its wings in Japan can cause a tornado in Kansas. So we're going to be looking at some existential-ish questions. We're also going to be looking at some people that probably made the wrong decision and it just absolutely blew up on them. And then they ended up getting labeled a menace to society in my last episode. So if you did already watch the episode that I posted this morning and you already watched Thursday's episode, go ahead and use the timestamps at the bottom and you're more than welcome to skip to the bonus stories at the end. Let's get into it. Okay, story number 1 comes from True Off My Chest. It says, I shit my pants during a job interview last week. I know this sounds absurd, but exactly what the title reads. I had a job interview last week and I shit my pants during it. I do not know what messed up my stomach, but just before the interview, I felt that burning urge of needing to go to the toilet. I felt like something was wrong, but hoped I could sort it out in 10 minutes. Boy, was I wrong. I literally shit my bowels out, but still felt like doing more. I checked my phone and it was time for the interview. I did not want to delay it as it was the final round with the COO of the company. I joined the interview call and after cleaning myself up, we started the interview and I could hear roaring noises coming from my bowels and I was full on sweating. I wished for the interview to end quickly, but the COO asked and asked. In the end, I could not hold it up anymore and literally shit my pants. The COO told me that I am a great fit for the position and I got the final offer, 3 times the annual salary of what I previously made with great benefits. I did not know if I should cry or laugh at the time. I just left the call after the final sayings. I had to throw my chair out and get a new one. It was a shitty interview, but with a great ending. I'll probably tell this one to my grandchildren in the future. Congratulations on getting the job, babe. You definitely earned it. A job well done, I'd say. I'm so glad for you that it was a virtual interview. When I first read the title of this, I thought, oh my gosh. I thought it was an in-person interview and oh my gosh, my heart just went out to you. I was like, oh, this poor person. But getting into it, I'm glad you at least did it at home. You know, the chair was just a minor sacrifice for you to earn that 3 times salary. I think that's amazing. Let's see what the comments say. Top comment says, okay, OP, we are looking for a real go-getter. Someone who can not only follow, but really takes initiative. Your resume looks good, but we need to see if you have what it takes to start and follow through the difficult tasks. So I'm going to need you to shit yourself right here and now. Can you do it? Show us what you've got. I know, man, you really wanted that job. You put everything out on the line. And I mean, like I said, your chair is just a minor sacrifice in the bigger picture of everything right now. The next comment says, great. When can you shart? 1.4K upvotes. This next one says, the shitting your pants part was for balancing. Otherwise, you'd be too overpowered with your new job. Good luck and congrats. Yeah, OP, the universe said, hey, you're too powerful. I'm going to knock you down a peg right now. And it was really probably a very humbling experience for you. And you absolutely should tell your grandchildren someday. The next comment says, how did that interview with the potential new guy go? He was uptight in the beginning, but by the end, he seemed so relaxed and relieved. I'm sure you were kind of relieved. I hope your stomach started feeling better immediately after that for all it was worth. The last comment says, this is my particular brand of anxiety. My absolute worst one was being undressed from the waist down for a pelvic exam. I had to run barefoot out of the room bathroom, wrapped in a paper drape to barely make it to the restroom. Then I had a full-on panic attack. Round 2 would be on the table with the doctor face first in my nethers. Fortunately, my doctor is amazing, and he instead held my hand and said we could skip that part because clearly emotional trauma isn't going to benefit anything. Oh, you poor people. Comment below. Have you ever shit your pants? I haven't in public, so I want to know if you have. I want to hear the full story down in the comments below. Be vulnerable today. Make other people laugh. That's what we're really here for. All right. This next story comes from r-confessions. It says, accidentally started a year-long prank war with a total stranger and they have no idea it's me. It all started with a simple mistake. I was at a coffee shop, distracted, half awake, and when the barista called out Jake, I grabbed the drink without thinking. A few sips in and I realized my mistake, but it was too late. Some poor guy named Jake was probably inside wondering where his caramel latte had vanished to. The next day, I walked in and saw a sign near the register that says, if your name is Jake, double check your order. I should have let it go, but something about it made me laugh, so I decided to keep the joke going. I started leaving cryptic sticky notes around the shop that said things like, Jake knows. I asked the barista in a hushed tone if Jake had been in today, and once even wrote, thanks for everything, Jake, on the community chalkboard. Sometimes I'd order under his name and tip extra just to confuse him. Over time, the barista started talking about Jake like he was some kind of local legend, and I have no idea if the real Jake has any clue what's going on. I don't even know who he is, but at this point, I think I'm in too deep. So Jake, if you're out there, I'm sorry, but also, are you okay? No, Jake is not okay. You've traumatized him. You've probably made him think that he is absolutely losing his mind. You've probably made him think that he is so off his rocker. He might not even go to that coffee shop anymore. You are causing this man pure chaos. Let's see what the comments say. The top comment says, this is one of those rare perfect examples of a mostly harmless prank in which no one gets hurt, harassed, or traumatized for social media clout, aside from the mistakenly stolen coffee that was the true innocent bystander in this situation. The next comment says, how long before they call out an order for Jake and one by one all the patrons start to stand up and say, I am Jake? Imagine if everybody just gets in on the joke and it just becomes one whole big massive prank between a bunch of strangers. I think that's pretty funny. The next comment says, I love this. Hashtag Jake strong. Yeah, I'm definitely team Jake in this one. The next comment says, everything about this is so elegant. I am obsessed. Me too. This is the type of harmless funny that the world needs more of. I'm not a prank person myself. Do not ever prank me. I don't like it. I will cry. But this is really funny. This is totally innocent. The last comment says, I would send flowers to this coffee shop for the best baristas ever. Signed, Jake. Yeah, how long do you think you can keep this going? Because there's a bunch of different outlets that you could totally explore just to mess with people further. All right, my dear, you are a menace to society, particularly to Jake. Jake, if you're out there watching, some dude is stealing your coffee and he just admitted it online, so you're not crazy. All right, y'all, this next story comes from Ask Reddit. So basically, people will go on this forum and they will ask Reddit anything and everything. It says, former actors at Disney parks, what's the weirdest thing that happened to you while you were in character? The top comment says, I squeezed Goofy's nose when I was little and he pretended to cry and I still live with the shame. How dare you make Goofy cry? That is criminally offensive. The next comment says, I was one of the performers for Nick Wilde from Zootopia a few years ago, and if you're not aware, a large number of people in the furry community find him highly attractive. You can just imagine the number of people in that community who flirted with me and or Judy and whispered some pretty sexual things to us. I think I also had a guy grab Nick's tie like in a flirty way, and he had to be escorted out of the park. The moral of the story is, don't be inappropriate with the characters. We are real people underneath, and there are legitimate consequences for that kind of behavior. There's probably a reason why you get kicked out of the park, and as far as I know, Disney takes their lifelong bans very seriously. Like, if you get banned from a park for life, you are absolutely banned for life. They take it so seriously, and they have the money to back it too. That is definitely interesting. I think I might be more traumatized to be a Disney character in one of these suits than I would be to be be Jake at that coffee shop. The next comment says, dated an actress. The weirdest she had was a man asking for him to be in the suit for an hour. He offered her $3,000 for it. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Somebody replies to this comment and goes, which suit? And OP just responds, Piglet. That is unhinged. I don't even want to know what he was doing in there. That's bizarre. The next comment says, I was playing Goofy inside a restaurant and I got swarmed alien style by a horde of kids all under the age of 10. Unfortunately, while I was playing around with them, the inner hood below the mask slipped over my eyes and I was completely blinded. We had assistants around whom we could signal for help by flapping our arms, but the kids had made it a game of attaching themselves Tarzan style to both my arms, and to raise them I would have had to lift 3 to 4 kids per arm. Dangerous, even if I'd been strong enough to do that. Oh my goodness, you turned into a real life jungle gym there. I found myself blind and completely rooted to the spot, unable to ask for help, and with nobody realizing that I was in trouble. I spent a solid 10 to 15 minutes in that sort of limbo, reflecting on the life decisions that had either taken me there until the assistant came over and whispered, set is over, dude. And I finally managed to signal that something was terribly wrong. Oh, you poor thing. Because yeah, you can't, when you're in that suit, your arms are in it. You can't just suck them back up in and pull the thing over your eyes. That would be terrifying. Someone replies to this comment and says, I'm sorry, but I'm laughing imaginally Goofy, rooted in place, contemplating life decisions in the middle of a restaurant. That's so funny. You have to be a very good sport to get inside these suits and know that there are going to be wild children all around that don't understand the concept of no. It takes a really brave person to be able to do that. The next one says, I dated a girl that played one of the fairies for the Tinkerbell place. Beyond the pretty much daily occurrence of old dads hitting on her, she was 19 at the time. The weirdest thing to happen to her was a woman with a 4-year-old little girl that was all excited to get a picture with Tinkerbell, who was busy. So my ex volunteered to do pictures and entertain the little girl while they waited. The woman was a real bitch about the idea, rudely saying that she was here to see Tinkerbell and not off-brand fairies. So just shrugging it off, my ex moved on. A bit later, she hears a commotion and Tinkerbell is obviously upset and security shows up. Apparently, this woman was Tinkerbell's bio mom and had taken her granddaughter to Disney just to violate the restraining order against her. Oh my God. Disney jail is a real place. That took a wild turn. I did not expect any of that. I feel like I just got whiplash from reading this. Like I said, you have to have some pretty thick skin to, willingly get in one of those suits and go out and play character. I'm so sure you run into the worst types of people. The next comment says, I was a mouse height performer at Disney World around 2013. Can unfortunately confirmed groping happened from time to time and it was incredibly uncomfortable. We were trained to move away if we could and signal to the character attendants to escort the guest away if it happened. One time some guy thought it was appropriate to pick me up completely off the ground in a bear hug. The head pushed back, and because the inside is connected to us with the headgear and the head strain, my neck bent back with it and it hurt like hell. Oh my God, that is full on assault. Are you kidding me right now? What is wrong with people? Why would you go up and attack somebody that's wearing a mouse suit nonetheless? Ew, and to be picked up in a bear hug, that's not cool. That's uncomfortable no matter what. But when it's a complete stranger doing it, immediately no. I get bad vibes from that. Not a weird story, but one of my most memorable guest experiences there was meeting a little blind boy as Mickey in Epcot. I gently guided his hand to the soft ears and then the nose and the bow tie. He was laughing and his smile lit up the whole room. I still get emotional thinking about it. Interactions like that made it all worth it to me at the same time. Oh, that's nice. Slightly redeeming, I suppose. I would not be okay if somebody picked me up in a bear hug like that. I hate that. I do not like that one bit. It hurts. Like, have you ever been picked up in a bear hug before? It actually really fucking hurts. The next comment says, never was an actor, but when I was a kid at Disney World in the 70s, I watched Chip get into a fist fight with a young 20-something guy. The guy's girlfriend wanted him to do a picture with Chip and Dale, but he didn't want to. Chip grabbed him in a headlock and his girlfriend snapped the photo. When Chip let go, the guy came up swinging. Dale had to jump in and break them up as Chip started swinging back. For a kid of only 12, it was awesome. Don't put somebody in a headlock, Chip. That's not cool. That's not chipmunk behavior. You don't do that. I don't care if it's supposed to be cute and funny. Maybe that guy was very claustrophobic. I wouldn't like that either, personally, but I would also also never come up swinging and punching somebody either. That's psychotic. All right. The last comment we're going to read says, not Disney, but mildly funny. In the 90s, my mom used to work for the company that owns Kool-Aid. She was over several commissaries, military-based grocery stores, and I usually did odd work for her like stocking or building displays. A few times I got to put on the Kool-Aid Man costume. It was hard to see anything since the viewports were in the eyes and mouth and they were super dark tinted plastic. I was placed between two racks of snack cakes and was scared to move much as I thought I might knock them over. So I stood there for probably half an hour as still as possible, just like a statue while waiting to see people. Then there was this small kid, maybe 3 or 4, who comes up to me with his mom. His eyes were so big and he was adorably in awe. I saw him and bent down to say hello and scared the living hell out of that poor kid. He bolted directly away from me, screaming in terror. I lumbered after him for about 5 steps, trying to get him to calm down and tell him I was friendly before realizing I was making more nightmare fuel for this poor little dude. His mom was laughing so hard she fell on her ass. Imagine a little 4-year-old child being chased by the Kool-Aid Man around the store. I'm sure you just traumatized him for life. That kid probably never drank Kool-Aid again. He probably still has nightmares about it. Just imagine this big giant Kool-Aid Man coming up to you and saying, "Oh yeah," just chasing you down the road. I can't. That is so funny. You traumatized a child entirely unintentionally, but I still think that's really funny. All right, this one also comes from Ask Reddit. And it says, what did the weird kid at your school do to earn that reputation? The top comment says, made plastic weapons with various school supplies so he could shoot stuff at people. The weird part is that he shot them at the other outcast kids. While he's probably a successful engineer at this point, I did get the pleasure to see one of the math nerds slap the shit out of him in retaliation once. That's funny. That's well deserved. He deserved that slap if he's gonna sit there slingshotting plastic things at people. How obnoxious. The next comment said, kicked his wooden clogs at kids that bullied him for wearing clogs. He had pretty good aim. That's funny. Don't make fun of people for what they're wearing, or you just might get smacked upside the head with a piece of it. Ew. The next comment says he would unwrap condoms, fill them with yogurt, and leave them around the school. God forbid the guy have hobbies. The next comment says he used to sit in puddles just to get sent home. Then the school realized and stopped sending him home. He carried on regardless. So he's just sitting in gross, soggy, squishy clothes all day. That is a texture nightmare. Somebody actually responds to this comment and said, had a kid do something similar in 2nd grade. He peed his pants one day and was sent home. And like a week later, I was in the bathroom and he was splashing and rubbing water onto his pants with this huge grin on his face. And then he ran out crying that he peed his pants again. He was once again sent home. Well, like a week or so later, he tried to do it again and the teacher caught on, and so did the nurse and the kid's parents. When he went to the nurse's office to call home, there was already a fresh pair of pants and underwear waiting in a bag from his parents just so that he could stay in school. He got called pee pants for years after. Oh man, high risk, no reward. The next comment says, had a German foreign exchange student that dressed up like Willy Wonka and carried around pies. For a while, I thought the only English he knew was, do you like pie? He was weird as shit, but always smiling, and the pies were good. That's a little creepy. I don't know how I feel about that. The next comment says, the weird kid at my high school got into an argument with a pretty popular kid. Popular guy wanted to fight. Weird kid told him that if he wins, he gets to keep the popular guy's thumbs. They didn't fight. I don't think I would fight somebody either if they just looked me straight in the eyes stone cold and said, if I win this fight, I'm keeping your thumbs. You can't really do a whole lot without your thumbs, you know? How would you grasp things? The next comment says, he had a walking stick that he didn't need and claimed it had a sword in it. We all believed him for about a week until he started claiming that only the worthy could pull it after we tried to get him to show us. That is some weird King Arthur shit, my guy. Also, if a kid is openly saying that they are bringing a sword to school, please say something. That is terrifying. The next comment says, he used to eat milk bone dog treats, had a tail, a clip-on one, obsessed with tactical gear, backpacks, and a flashlight. He's a janitor now. Ooh, it's giving master of the custodial arts. I don't know how I feel about that one either. But I guess technically he's not doing anything wrong. I think it's the tail for me. I think that would throw me off just a little bit to see, but who Who knows? The last comment on this one says, ours was a kid who liked to take his shirt off and shotgun sodas on the school bus like he was at a frat party. Years later, I took a job as a cook in a cafeteria. My manager said he hoped I would stay longer than the last guy who liked celebrating the weekends by slamming back sodas after poking a hole in them with a kitchen knife, aka shotgunning. Incredibly, I asked the guy's name. Yep, it was the Pepsi party animal himself. Some people never change. That they don't. That they don't. I was definitely considered more of an outcast in my high school. I would love to know what those people thought of me. I would love to know what I did. No, you know what? I know what I did. And I didn't even do anything. This is how stupid the school that I went to was. Okay. Think, Christian religious. You have to wear collared shirts and khaki pants every single day. No expression, no fun makeup. Blech. When I first started at that school in 7th grade, so you had to wear polo shirts, like, you know, the shirts with like collars on them that have button down. I wore a shirt that was like really cute and it was white and it had like outlines of penguins on them and they were this big. I mean, they were fucking tiny. Like you couldn't even tell what it was unless you were up on me. Everybody bullied me for that so hard. And then I barely made any friends, or I would eat in like the orchestra room because my orchestra teacher, she always had my back because I was definitely that kid for no reason as far as I know. But anyways, you're right. Some people never change. Some people are just weird forever and some people are bullies forever and you never know what you're gonna get. This one comes from Casual Conversation and it reads, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live and why? And then the person that wrote this said, I live in rural southeast Arkansas and today I'm tired of being cold. I'm tired of the rain. I'm tired of having to drag my dogs to sit in the bathroom as tornado sirens are going off. In a few months, I'll be tired of being hot and not being able to sleep well at night because of it. We will be begging for rain because we've had none. Our allergies are killing us. It will only get worse. And as much crime and noise as there is around here these days, I might as well live in a big city. If such a place exists, I would love to live somewhere that is between 65 and 85 all year long with limited humidity. You don't have to worry about tornadoes, flooding, ice, snow, because they don't take care of the roads here, hurricanes, or any other major disaster Mother Nature could come up with. Somewhere that I can have a decent place to eat if I choose to eat out and a decent place to shop. I want to be able to go to the movies from time to time without having to drive 45 minutes to the closest theater that isn't in very good condition anymore, if it's even still open, or double that time to the nicer ones. Where would you choose? I want to live somewhere walkable with decent public transit system and a reasonable cost of living. I like my $600 to rent too much to move right now, even if somewhere like that does exist. That's such an interesting question and also a very interesting dilemma. I did not like living in Indiana for the exact same reasons where it's just too dark there. There's not a whole lot of sunshine except in the summertime. I loved going up to Lake Wawasee, but in terms of living in actual Indianapolis, hard pass, would never move back. Sorry, Mom. And as for Colorado, you know, I'm pretty much over it too. It's winter 8 months out of the year here. It's way too damn cold. I'm so tired of dealing with snow and bad drivers and dead car batteries and just how expensive it is out here for nothing, really. I mean, yeah, the mountains are super cool, but I totally get where you're at. I want to read some of these comments and I want you guys to comment below as well. Tell me where you would live in like a dream world if you could have everything you want. Let's say you wake up and you win the lottery and you win $100 million. Where are you gonna go? What are you gonna do? Comment below. All right, so the top comment says, a cabin in the middle of the forest, hundreds of miles away from humans. Yeah, I completely agree with that. But you know, the smaller the town, the bigger the problems. I'll tell you that right now. The next comment says, right here in sunny San Diego. Not cheap living, but worth it. Beautiful beaches, moderate climate, and lovely people. Come check it out. Wow, San Diego does sound beautiful. Everything that I know about it sounds amazing. I feel like there you're definitely paying for quality of life. Like you're probably around more like-minded people, probably don't have as high of a crime rate. And like this guy just said, sunny beaches and moderate temperature, that is the dream. Someone replied to this last comment and said, came here to say OP is basically describing San Diego. Not too hot, not too cold, occasional small earthquake that's just enough to knock over your framed photos. Not sure they even really get wildfires the way the rest of SoCal does. Lots of great restaurants and entertainment options. It's more expensive, but the thing about living in SoCal is that you're just a day's drive away from so many world famous destinations. So if you think about it, you're actually paying for all of that too. You know what? I completely agree. San Diego sounds absolutely lovely. I would love to live near the beach and the ocean. I'm definitely not a mountain girl like I thought it was. It's just too cold all of the time here. Wow, so it sounds like SoCal is the place to be, specifically San Diego. That's 2 for San Diego, but let's see what other people have to say. The next one says, ooh, I live in Portugal, and to be honest, I'd like to keep living here. Wow, I would love to move out of the country. What an amazing dream that is. Portugal is just absolutely gorgeous and so rich in culture. I bet that's lovely. The next comment says, win the Powerball, then move to La Jolla, California. There we go. 3 for California. Man, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is, OP. The next one says, hun, I say this with all honesty. There are problems everywhere you live. I've lived in 12 different states at this point, and there were good points and bad points of all. Maine is stunningly beautiful with cheap lobster / ocean fish, cheap land, and a fairly live and let live vibe. But the property taxes are sky high, as are car registrations, and the further you get from Portland or Bangor, the more rural it gets. The summers are delightful, but winters are brutal. Tennessee is probably not that different from your Arkansas. Nebraska was boring as hell outside of Omaha, though I did have some delightful wide open space horse rides. Interesting. Okay. I don't like Nebraska. I don't like any of the flat states. I don't like the Midwest. I'm so sorry if you live in the Midwest. I truly am so sorry. So yes, the grass may be greener for you in another state, but I would recommend doing extensive research and getting to know the areas that hit on the top of your list thoroughly from actual people who live there, not just Google searching the top 10 places to live highlight reels. Yeah, I made that mistake when I moved out to Colorado. I Googled smallest towns and the best views, and it brought me to Crestone, where there ended up being a cult. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that word on YouTube or not, but there was definitely one there, and it was really sketchy. I did not do my research. I stuck it out for almost 2 years though, and I moved right before COVID, and had that not happened, oh my god, I probably would have ended up back in Indiana, and I don't even like to go down that rabbit hole. So definitely do your research, stop and visit for a while, definitely go to the local bars, go to the local Walmart, ask people if they like living here, go talk to the regular normal people, especially if you're thinking about moving to a vacation town. Just because it's a vacation town does not mean that it's good. Sometimes they are, in my experience, they have not been that good. It's really fun to visit there, and it's really dreamy at first, but then once you get to know the people, I mean, my biggest advice for moving is please get to know the people before you move, because that can make or break your entire experience. Take it from someone who that has happened to multiple times. I've moved 12 different times in the last 7 years. So wherever you go, make sure that there is ample housing, because just because you find a house once really doesn't mean that that house is going to be available or stay available. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that if you're renting, you know what the rental structure out there is like. I definitely recommend joining like the local Facebook page, especially if it is a town. You might be able to find out some more information that way, but please don't jump into it blind. Take it from somebody who did that and just absolutely got shafted repeatedly over and over again for the last 7 years. Ooh, looks like we got 4 for California. This next comment says, right where I am in beautiful Southern California. Dang. Okay. 4 people are saying California is the place to be. You know, I'm kind of considering, I'm between California and Washington right now, and I'm not quite sure which one I want to be in. I have pros and cons for each, but reading all these comments saying California kind of maybe feels like a sign. So the next one says Barcelona, Spain. Oh, that's a dream. Easy to be vegan, lots to do, good social atmosphere, arts, interesting, and you're close to a lot of places for outdoor activities with beaches, trees, etc. Oh, Barcelona would just be the dream. I think anything would be the dream outside of America, especially right now. My ultimate dream in life is I want to move to either Washington or California next. And then I want to spend a few years there and build my career up, obviously build my YouTube channel. And then if I could really have it my way, I would love to live on Hawaii someday, one of the islands down there. I think Maui is amazing. amazing. I would love to just go and chill and vibe with the locals and just sit there and do my little YouTube thing and be able to enjoy. And then I studied abroad in Japan twice. I went on 2 different spring terms with the university I was going to at the time, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the food, with the way that they get around. I mean, it was just a dream for me. And also, I didn't have really bad asthma while I was there either time, versus here, my asthma is like terrible 24/7. So if I could have it my way, I would absolutely move to Japan because I can still do my YouTube thing from there and get to enjoy all of the things that I love. I mean, Tokyo is my all-time favorite city on the entire planet. If you ever get a chance to go, please do. It is the most amazing place in the entire world. I've been a lot of different places, and Japan is just my favorite and then some. The next comment says Hawaii. There you go. That's definitely a dream. I love that. All right, the last comment that we're gonna read says Iceland. Since I was a kid, I felt I belonged there. Then when I was in my 20s, I traveled by myself there, and it obviously felt like home. I can't explain why I felt so comfortable. It's just a part of me. Wow, that's exactly how I feel about Japan. It just became a part of me as soon as I traveled there, and I just really fell in love with it. Iceland is definitely on my bucket list. I love to travel. I think if I'm gonna, particularly spend my money on anything, I think it would have to be travel. I mean, just to go and see different cultures and be immersed in something that's totally different from, the day-to-day life here in America. In my personal opinion, it's all very mundane. Our food is not great. Obviously, our political system, y'all know how I feel about that. 0 out of 10. I really think that everybody should go out and see the world if you can. If you ever get the chance to, please go. Comment below, where would you want to live if you absolutely could? If you won the lottery today, right now, where would you move to? Or would you stay exactly where you are? I want to know. All right, we're going to move on to the next story. This one comes from Ask Reddit, and it says, what's a weird little law/rule your younger self made up that you still follow for no good reason? All right, the top comment says, when I meet people, I don't cuss in front of them until they cuss in front of me first. Then I get the green light. That's a very good rule to follow by. Follow the leader in that situation. You never know how people are going to take to bad words, especially in today's day and age. People are either super down with it or they are insanely offended by it, and there's no in between. The next one says, if one of my hands gets wet, the other hand must also get wet. Yes, you have to balance it out. If one is going to get wet, the other one has to get wet too. Otherwise, your finger pads on your one hand are going to feel completely different than the other one. So when you go to touch your fingers together, personally, I would notice this. I absolutely would notice this in a heartbeat. I completely agree. Or if you're going to put like lotion on one, you have to put lotion on the other too. The next one says, if I chew a bite of food on one side of the mouth, I need to chew it on the other side as well. You know what? I totally agree with that too. I do that with mandarin oranges. I break them perfectly in half and I eat exactly one half on one side and exactly one half on the other side. That way my whole mouth can get the flavor and my teeth are equally as cold if I'm pulling it straight out of the fridge. I'm starting to think that there's a lot of neurodivergence on this post. I can sense you guys out. One of us. The next comment says, never ever look behind you after shutting off the lights in the basement. Just haul your ass up the stairs as fast as you can. True, you don't want to get caught by any monsters. I mean, I'm 30 years old and I still turn out the lights and immediately jump from my light switch into my bed every single night, so I can totally relate to this one too. The next comment says, wet toothbrush, apply toothpaste, wet toothbrush again, commence with brushing. I absolutely agree with this one too. I do this as well. That is the routine every single time. The next comment says, the last bite of food has to be the perfect combination of all the ingredients. This is the most important for pizza. We'll eat the crust second to last and move toppings around to create a perfect last bite, and with salads. Wraps are a huge pain because without proper planning, I end up on the butt of the wrap with just some lettuce and watery mayo folded weirdly into it. Unacceptable. I definitely do this one too. I do this particularly with steak. I will cut around all of the fatty pieces. I will literally save the best piece of the entire steak, whatever I cut off that just looks the best, that has the least amount of fat and everything on it, I will intentionally save that bite for very, very last. That way I don't get food aversion next time, because sometimes, listen, if you end on a really chickeny bite of chicken, it might leave a bad taste in your mouth for the next time that you try to go eat that food. The next comment says, can't just retie one shoelace. It feels tighter on one foot and I can't focus on anything else. Not to be a pick me here, but I tie my shoes so good that they never come untied. I never have this problem. They literally stay on the entire day. So I have no idea, but just going based off of what they said about the texture feeling uncomfortable of one being too tight and the other one, I would definitely let my brain go loose on that, and it would drive me nuts to the point of just stopping dead in my tracks just to be able to fix it. If it's got to be fixed and you push it to that point of no return, you got to fix the damn thing. The next one says, always put your valuable items in the same spot so you never lose them. Phone, wallet, keys, PKW is what my best friend says, and that helps me remember my phone, wallet, and keys. That is just an ADHD survival tactic. The biggest thing I've learned in therapy to help myself remember is don't put it down, put it away. So to all my neuro spicy girlies out there, don't put that thing down. Put it back where it belongs so that you don't have to go on an hour search the very next time you're missing it. The next comment says, if a loved one goes to the hospital, they get a stuffed animal. Oh, I love that. This one comes from a sister whose daughter was in the NICU when she was born, and the number of children who had no loved ones there to care for them broke my heart. So that Christmas, every single baby in the NICU got a stuffed animal. Since then, it's been known as my law. I've bought a lot of stuffed animals in the last 35 years. I still have the one I got from my father last time he was in the hospital, the visit he never came home from. I really love that. I think that is so, so sweet. You are such a kind, good-hearted human. We need more people like you in the world. The next comment says, the best bag of chips I ever had in my life was when I accidentally opened it upside down. I have opened every bag of chips bottom up since. Wow, I can see how that works. All the good crumbs and all the good little flavor dustings kind of sink to the bottom when they're sitting on the shelf like that. Maybe I'll have to try that. Comment below. Have you ever eaten a bag of chips upside down before? I bet it would be bomb. Like, the thing that I'm specifically picturing in my head right now is the Ruffles, the sour cream and cheddar ones. I think that I'm gonna have to try that. That's a really great idea. The next comment says, you must replace the toilet roll on the holder, specifically over, not under, even when at a guest's house. Absolutely. If I walk into your house and you have to grab the toilet paper from under and not just be able to pull it over, I'm going to immediately think that there is something wrong with you. Nobody actually does that. Don't put the roll under, put it over every single time, please. That drives me nuts. I do not like it. I've had people come over to my house and replace the toilet paper roll, and while I appreciate it, they've definitely done it under and not over, and it's just like, have some common sense. Nobody wants to grab the toilet paper, try to reach for it, and then it's all clung to the wall, static electricity underneath. Immediately no. Over, not under, always. All right, you guys, the last comment we're going to read on this one says, never say something to someone online or on the phone that you wouldn't say to their face. That is a wonderful rule to live by, for sure. I'm trying to think, what's the rule that I would use from when I was younger that I made up that I still do now? You know, I think the rule that I had from younger, from, you know, what my parents taught me that I still very much do now is treat people the way you want to be treated. And if they're not going to treat you the way that you deserve to be treated, then walk away. You know, if someone's going to treat you badly, don't treat them badly back. Just walk away. But if they're going to treat you amazing, you should try your best to treat them amazing back, because that's really what makes the world go round. This next story comes from Confessions, and this one is about a guy who, in hindsight, if he could have, he probably should have. This one says, the worst mistake I ever made was telling people I had won the lottery. I had won the lottery about 7 years ago. Between my annuity and profits from investments, all net, I got shy of $800,000 a year. I was stunned that I won. Once I confirmed that I won, I started to tell people. I thought they'd be happy for me. They were happy for me for a minute, and then they started to ask me for money. Really? You don't say. Friends and family alike. Then they started to tell other people. I was literally getting 10 calls a day from people asking for money. My favorite was the sister of my coworker saying she needed rent money and a friend asking me to buy them a $20,000 for a ring he had been dating for only a few months, and she was screwing other guys on the side anyways. Some people successfully used me and I cut them off after. I still helped some people, but I had to cut them off because they were asking me for money only to give it to others or using the money for something very different. It was really traumatic. Oh, honey. I even had a therapist try to rip me off by asking for a cash tip after our session. Now that's just wrong. Is that legal? Is that actually legal? What a betrayment of your trust. I am so sorry that happened to you. That has to feel awful. I was spending more money on people than I was on myself. It's ironic that I have more money than I needed, yet I can't give it away because it brings nothing but problems. People make generosity not worth it. People want me to finance their best lives and have the arrangement be exclusively on their terms. I will never understand why people can't accept one thing without trying to get more. I chalk it up that people in my life had no respect for me. Oh, honey, you shouldn't have told people you won the lottery. Don't you know to move in the shadows? I know you thought people were going to be happy for you, and for that I am so sorry. But common sense here says that money is the root of all evil. Money is greed. Mo money, mo problems. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that people in your life started to use you, I think it's that they don't have any self-control personally. I think that money truly is the root of all evil, and if they see you have a lot, of course they're gonna sit there and be beggars, for your money that you rightfully had. I mean, that's insane. Now we know for the future. I hope you're able to make some new friends. I'm really sorry that happened to you. You definitely deserve to be surrounded by better people. All right, let's get into these comments. The top comment says, you can literally disappear from the face of the earth with that much money. Change your name, go to a new country, delete all social media, change your number. Like, you can do whatever you want and you chose to stay around these people. That's a little harsh. I can understand why you wanted to stay around people because those are your friends and your family. You know what I mean? It's not just random. It is random strangers, but that's not your fault. Sounds like that's your family's fault. It's very hard to cut off people that you love, and I'm really sorry that you had to. I think that comment was definitely a little harsh, but you got to do what you got to do also at the end of the day. And if they are just constantly begging to the point where it's, threatening you, then yeah, you probably made the right call. But again, it's super sucky nonetheless. The next comment says, 100 stories I've read like this. If I ever won money, nobody would know. Exactly. Like, if you win the lottery, or even if you're just making a lot of money, don't go brag about it. Don't tell anybody else. Oh my God, especially in this economy, that can really get scary. I mean, I would be concerned for my safety at that point if that happened to me and I was going around telling people. People are really unhinged, and I think that people are also really, really desperate, especially right now, and you kind of have to protect your peace, but just protect yourself as a whole. I mean, that's pretty scary. I don't know. The next comment says, there would be signs, but I wouldn't tell anyone. You just see a sudden increase in the amount of Subarus. Yeah, I don't like fancy cars, and the fact I'd be mostly cut off from civilization. I mean, hey, if you know what you like, you know what you like. Subarus are good cars. They'll get you to and from, and you don't have to, do a lot of maintenance on them, unlike some foreign sports car. And again, less risk of it getting stolen or, somebody even potentially harming you for it, because you never know how unhinged people are. Jealousy is a very powerful thing, and it can definitely be scary. So you do want to protect yourself. I mean, if I won the lottery, I would buy a decent house with a yard for my dogs and a pool. I would probably buy maybe another Jeep or something. But other than that, I wouldn't tell anyone. I would live comfortably within my means, and I wouldn't go spend it like some crazy maniac. I'd probably go on an Amazon shopping spree, but who wouldn't? The last comment says, don't give away any more of your money. Start a charity or something. There's a lot of people out there who can use money more often than the people who ask. Your situation sounds rough. I agree. But also, did you really think that telling people you won that much money in the lottery was a good idea at the end of the day? I don't know. That's common sense. I don't know if I've ever been necessarily told that anywhere, but that is definitely common sense. Move in the shadows, honey. Move in the shadows. Get it done. Enjoy your life. I'm sorry you had to cut people off. I hope that you do find new people to be around. And the next time you win the lottery, if you ever win again, don't tell anyone. Okay? Okay, glad we're on the same page here. This one says, you passed away and are allowed to be reborn, but not as a human. What do you want to be? The top comment has 28,000 upvotes and it says, a house cat of a childless or empty nest woman you want for nothing. That's very true. I mean, look at Taylor Swift's cats. They are worth millions of dollars. They live such a great life. They're loved on all the time. I mean, look at my dogs, for example. Look at this. Just chilling under the blanket the entire time. Oh, my buddy. Look at this. I mean, if I could choose, I would definitely be a dog in a household kind of like mine, except with a backyard, where I could just get loved on and snuggled on all day by my human like this. Like you're being forced into snuggles. Like you're a baby. He's just a baby. Someone replies to that comment and says, cats specifically owned by a devoted lesbian couple. Now there's the dream. You would guaranteed always be taken care of for life. The next comment says, a seagull, live at the beach, can fly and float, get to eat fries, pizza, seafood, etc., not actively hunted, and you can shit on your enemies. That's a really funny one. I like that a lot. The next comment says, a golden retriever in an upper middle class suburban family. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. You would just get pets galore for the rest of your life. You get to go to the groomer. You probably have a swimming pool. I love that. The next one says, orca or some big whale exploring the ocean would be dope. I don't like that. I think that our ocean is full of mysteries that I personally don't want to know. I don't want to know what's down there. What's the statistic on it? That we have discovered like 3% of our ocean or something like that? That's not enough for me to want to go into it in any life form. The next one says, one of the extinct species, like a dodo or a Tasmanian tiger, hide out most of the time, emerge only when there's a conspiracy theorist around, but tuck out of sight as soon as they try to take a picture. Or better, when there's a skeptic around, make them question their skepticism, but be unable to prove what they saw, then move on before they have a chance to prove I was there. Basically, just to mess with humans. And you know what? I feel like that is well deserved. I feel like humans have just destroyed our earth, and I think that would be pretty funny to mess with some people, make them feel crazy in the head. The next comment says, can I get dibs on a rock somewhere on Pluto? There you go. Yeah, I mean, the post does say that you're not allowed to be reborn as a human, but it doesn't say we can't be born on other planets. I would love to explore what a different planet is like. I would personally love to explore Jupiter. I think that would be so cool. Oh, she just heard me say her name. Jupiter. All right. The next comment says, anything that's not conscious. I agree with that. If I can be a tree out in the forest somewhere and just sway with the wind all day, I think I probably would. The next comment says, a wise old tree on a quiet hill, watching the seasons pass, sheltering life, rooted in place, whispering secrets to wind. Taylor Swift, is that you? That was very poetic. I love that a lot. Imagine just being an old, like a 600-year-old tree in one of these forests. I mean, imagine the stories that they have to tell. The next one says, a red panda in a well-funded, conservation-oriented zoo. Yeah, I bet they get treated pretty well. They probably get treats all day, every day, and they're probably pretty lazy from what I know about pandas. The next one says, some rich old lady's yappy dog or cat. I'd get food, sleep all day, and taken care of. And if I'm a yappy dog, I can just yap, 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 and drive people crazy. That's so funny that you can. The next comment says, whatever alien species Mark Zuckerberg is. Oh God, isn't he lizard people? Is that correct? Again, don't come for me, Mark. The next comment says, a panda, no notes. Pandas are super cute. They just sleep all day and eat bamboo, and they just have the most simple life of all the bears. The next comment says, I would want to be a grizzly bear to hibernate all winter. I love sleeping, eating when I'm hungry, and I hate the cold. That's a win-win-win. Yeah, exactly. Just to be able to go snuggle up in a cave all fat and cozy and then wake up the next spring, just miss the entire winter. Oh, what a dream. If you can't move somewhere that doesn't have winter, I guess you gotta beat it somehow, and hibernation is pretty legit. The next comment says, a bird, so I can do what whatever I want and go wherever I want. Yeah, as a bird, you would be able to travel. What is it? Canadian geese that travel the furthest out of the birds to hibernate. Don't they travel like thousands of miles every year? Like coast to coast or something? Aside from all the hate that Canadian geese get, that's a pretty big trek to make. All right, the last comment on here says, okay, who's to say reincarnation is limited solely to Earth? Presumably it applies to all life anywhere in the universe. To end that, either some highly advanced and peaceful civilization on the corner of a little-known galaxy or a spoiled and happy dog. Man, those are some great comments and really good insight. If I could be, okay, real talk outside of being reincarnated as a dog, I did see a medium that was on TikTok, and they were talking about how when we reincarnate with us and our pets, like we switch roles as we go throughout lifetime. So like someday they're going to be the owners and I'm going to be the dog. I don't know if any of that's true, but I think it's fun to believe. And, beliefs are just choices at the end of the day. So I choose to believe that. I also don't think that we're alone in the universe. And I think that even though we have still yet to discover what's out there in the universe, which is mind blowing to me, considering it's 2025 and we have all this technology, I think there are other life forms on other planets, maybe even super far outside of our galaxy. I mean, our universe is constantly expanding all the time. So who knows what's out there, how far it goes, where the edge of it is. Now I'm getting really existential on you guys. All right. Our first bonus story comes from True Off My Chest, and it says, I called a child ugly. I picked up my 4-year-old from kindergarten, and two of the girls that usually pick on my daughter, both 5 years old, came to the door talking to me. While I waited for my daughter to organize her place and then come out, they were just talking and saying random kid stuff. I kind of entertained it, but was a bit distracted. One of them showed me her doll that she had brought to school because it was bring your toy to kindergarten day. And while she showed it to me, the other one told me I was ugly. And without hesitation, I looked at her sweetly and said she was ugly too. Only for her to start crying and me realizing what I had just said. I'm also a clinical psychologist and I specialize in kids and youth. I was just on autopilot, but honestly, I don't really feel bad about it. That is definitely menace behavior. That could definitely have some consequences down the road for her. But my hot take is that you're never too young to learn about karma and the consequences of your actions. So, maybe this event is enough for them to not go and be bullies in high school. I mean, who knows? The butterfly effect could have worked in that way for you. Let's see what the comments say. The top comment says, I had a similar experience with my nephew. He's going to be 4 and learned some insults already. Several days ago, he said, Auntie D, me, is ugly, repeatedly over and over again. To which I replied, we look alike. If I'm ugly, you're ugly too. He just started crying to my sister, but my sister just laughed and said, she's right. He stopped right away. Sometimes you just have to give people a tiny little taste of their own medicine in the most harmless way. And I think this was harmless and probably pretty funny. The fact that your sister, his mom, literally stepped in and said the same thing is also pretty funny. So it's never too young to learn to just be nice to people. I mean, that's really what's going to make the biggest difference in the world. The next comment says, reminds me of Modern Family when Lily tells a pregnant Sal, you're huge. And Sal responds with nice teeth. Someone replies to that and says, our identical twin girls would get mad at each other and say the other was ugly. I would hand the offender a mirror and walk away. That is ice cold. That's super funny. This next comment says, reminds me of the time when a group of kids on bikes pulled out in front of my wife when navigating the grocery store parking lot. The one boy gave her the finger and then did a wheelie on his bike. About 20 feet later, he clipped a curb and completely wiped out. As my wife drove by, I rolled down the window. She pointed and gave him the Simpsons. Ha ha. My wife goes, he's like 12. I don't care. He gave us the finger. I'm not gonna lie. 12 is kind of the perfect age to really start learning about karma and all of its consequences. The last comment on here says, age is not an excuse. If parents don't take it upon themselves to teach their children to be at least passably decent human beings, then unfortunately, the world will. They are lucky if this happens when they are still kids, because if they have to learn these lessons as adults, the consequences are going to be much, much harsher. I completely agree. If we can just teach our kids from a young age to be kind to everybody and be kind to the earth and be kind to animals, maybe one day the earth will actually have a chance and we will have a thriving society all around the planet. I think that these are all pretty harmless and funny. Hopefully they have good outcomes on the kids later in life, and hopefully they can look back at these moments and say, you know, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or, you know, it really hurt me when the consequences came back on me for being a bully. All right, the last bonus story we're going to read today comes from Ask Reddit, and it says, what is an example of the butterfly effect that has happened in your life? The top comment says, around 5 years ago, I was going to live in Australia for around a year as part of a student exchange program. I would have been able to leave for Australia earlier, but then I had some troubles organizing my visa. The visa couldn't come from my national government for some reason. They had to go through the German bureaucracy instead. The delay meant that I had to leave 1 week later than originally planned, and I had to reschedule flights, which was a large nuisance at the time. The original flight I would have been on would have been flight MH17 from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur that was shot down with a rocket above Ukraine by pro-Russian separatists. Everybody on that flight died. I took flight MH19 instead thanks to the delay caused by the slow bureaucracy. I would have died had I gotten my visa on time. That is scary. That is creepy. I have goosebumps. That is so eerie. I guess that's one perk of having the government take forever to do something basic, is that it literally saved your life. That's nuts. Someone responds to this comment and says, reminds me of how Seth MacFarlane was so hungover that he decided to postpone his flight, and it turned out that his original flight was one of the planes that crashed into the Twin Towers. Someone else responds to this and says, the way I heard it, he actually tried to catch his flight that day but was late because of being hungover, and when he got to the airport, they wouldn't let him through. He had to book the next available flight and got to watch his original flight smash into the World Trade Center on live TV at the airport while he waited for his next flight. Oh my gosh. I have goosebumps right now. The reason why there wasn't an episode on Tuesday is because I was supposed to be going to my best friend's wedding in California, and I had the craziest string of bad luck. I waited outside the bus stop early, like way early. I was going to get to the airport like an hour and 45 minutes ahead of time. So I waited, and the first bus that was supposed to be there never showed up. The second bus that was supposed to be there also never showed up. And by this time, it was already 8:30. My flight was supposed to start boarding at 9:11 a.m. From where I live to Denver International Airport, it's easily 30 to 45 minutes depending on traffic. So I called my best friend, and we were all trying to look through different options of like, oh, maybe you can take an Uber. And so we were like, well, maybe I can just take my car. And then that wasn't going to work because I would have still had to stop to get gas and I wouldn't have made it on time. The other kicker too is like where my flight was located. I was looking at like my Frontier app, and it was like saying like, oh, your gate has changed. You're going to be at A80, which if you're familiar with DIA, A80 is all the way at the ass end of the airport. I mean, it's almost as far down as you can go. And I have really severe asthma, so I cannot run through the airport. If I'm going to have to run through the airport, I'm just not going to go. And I've had to unfortunately make that decision a couple of times because I've had to run and sprint, you know, when you're just like running through the airport, you're carrying your luggage, everything is chaotic and you're trying to catch your flight. I have been denied getting on flights before because I have been having a full-on asthma attack when I've showed up at my gate, and they have told me like, ma'am, I'm sorry, but if you get on this flight, like you are risking your life and we can't, you know, we can't have that happen, which is totally understandable. I mean, I'm not mad, but I don't know. And then I was talking to one of my other girlfriends here, and she basically said like, watch the next plane crash that we hear about be your returning flight or something. And I was just like, dude, and it gave me chills. And so reading these comments here and hearing that it has happened to real life people is really scary. And I think the universe kind of protects us in some really weird ways, even if it is absolutely detrimental at the time and just soul crushing, you know, to miss out on events like this. But you know, and I don't think the flight crashed, obviously. I mean, I didn't hear about anything. I think if I did hear about it though, there would be a good chance I don't fly again. I already hate flying. I have really bad flying anxiety. Like it's not the vibe, but that is really crazy to hear about all that. So let's keep reading what these comments say. The next comment on this says, I had a crush on a guy when I was in 5th grade. He was a grade ahead of me. I finally told my parents about my crush. They ended up befriending my crush's parents. My dad started working for my crush's dad even. My dad borrowed borrowed my crush's dad's work van for a job and he went to return it and then ride his bike home. He fell off of his bike during that ride and died 2 weeks later. My mom, a few months later, started having an affair with my crush's dad, who was and is still married. That was 16 years ago and it's still going on. Oh my God. I am so sorry. Don't beat yourself up for that though. That's wow. That is really crazy. I'm like dumbfounded right now because there's a lot of layers to that. Man, I'm really sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry. The affair started 16 years ago and it's still going on? You mean the affair from 16 years ago is still going on today? I need more information. Are they still having a secret affair? Have they kept it a secret for 16 years? Or are they just together now? Oh my God. Absolutely not. If they're just still having an affair after 16 years, this is why I don't trust people. How can you do that for 16? Oh my God. We're done. We're moving on to the next comment. I'm getting heated. The next comment says, quit my boring office job and turned down a job offer from MI5 in London to go live in Australia after visiting for a few days and loving it there. There was an issue with my visa, which meant it expired 2 hours before I landed and was invalid. I had to fly to another country to get a new one, so I flew to New Zealand, but the backpacking hostel I was going to stay in was overbooked. Offered to put me up in an Asian hostel down the block, and I agreed because I just wanted to get my visa and go back to Australia. I applied for my visa online as soon as I got to the Asian hotel. While I was there, I met a super hot Japanese girl. We tried to communicate, but she couldn't speak any English and I didn't know any Japanese. So the next day, I bought a Japanese phrase book to chat with her. Aww. We went hiking to bars, the beach, the movie theater, and 3 weeks later, I got my visa and she came back to Australia with me. Wow. I got a job selling you guys are gonna eat me up in the comments for mispronouncing this. I have no idea what this word says. I'm gonna put it on the screen. Didgeridoos. What the fuck is a didgeridoo? I'm so sorry. I got a job selling didgeridoos on the Gold Coast, and she went back to New Zealand after 3 months because she only had a tourist visa. At the end of the year, my boss at the didgeridoo place offered to sponsor me for a new work visa, but the Japanese girl was asking me to meet her in Tokyo. So I just quit the didgeridoo job and flew to Japan. What the hell is a didgeridoo? Comment below if you know what this is. So I quit the didgeridoo job and flew to Japan. I spent 6 months with this girl in Japan as a tourist and met her mate's father, who is a karate master. He offered to teach me karate, so I got a visa for that and stayed. Later on, I married the girl, had kids, got a job at a private high school, and bought a home in Tokyo. All because I was 2 hours late from the UK to Australia. You are living the dream, my friend. I am so jealous that you live in Tokyo. I would love to live in Japan so badly. I love it there. Like I said, I've been there twice. I want to go back to Japan so badly. It is a beautiful area. That's just a really good example of the butterfly effect working out in somebody's favor. Had that not happened, you would be living a completely different life right now. That's nuts. The last comment says, drunkenly agreed at a party the night before to go visit my friend's parents with him the next day in a city 200 miles away. It turned out another friend lived close by, so we all met for drinks that evening and said another friend's sister happened to be visiting him for the weekend. She came to meet us as she'd not seen me for a few years. We got drunk. My friend left early as he had work the next day. His sister didn't, and 9 years later we were married with 2 kids. A series of events which, if any one particular part had not happened, would have significantly altered the course of my life. Wow, that's amazing. I'm happy for you too. I'm glad you found the love of your life through this. Oh my gosh, I have to pause for a second. My eldest child is here. This is Lance. You guys have obviously seen plenty of Roman and you saw Jupiter a little bit earlier, but this is the first dog I have ever owned. He is just the love of my life. And kind of tying into the butterfly effect, when I moved out of my parents' house and I moved in with this girl I had gone to high school with, she had a dog and I had told her like how badly I always wanted to have a dog. And she was like, well, you're allowed to have a pet. Let's go to the shelter and find you one. And so we went to the shelter and we walked through, and because of the lease I was only allowed to have a small dog, and they only had a bunch of big dogs there. And as we were walking back through on the way to leave and go to a different shelter, Lance popped up out of nowhere in his little kennel that they have over at the shelters. He had just been neutered, so he had just gotten out of surgery, and had I been there, had we left 5 minutes earlier, I never would have met him because we would have gone to a different shelter and the whole trajectory of my life would have changed. changed because I got Roman after I had moved out of this girl's house, and he just became so depressed because he didn't have another dog to play with like he was used to. And so that's how he came along. And then had I not had either one of these two, then Jupiter wouldn't have came along because she sniffed them out and she would crawl under the fence in my yard out in Crestone and she would eat my dog food. And had none of this happened, this is crazy. I'm going to start crying. I think we should end the episode here. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to catch Tuesday's episode. Next week, we are going to be talking about revenge. Tuesday is going to be petty revenge and Thursday is going to be professional revenge. So it is going to be a blast and I can't wait to see you there. Bye.
Say bye.